Good morning. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar entitled The Power of Poverty Alleviation, Measuring What Matters. My name is Sandra Draheim, and I'm the Marketing Manager for the William Davidson Institute, who sponsors this free webinar series, which showcases not only our latest work in the poverty reduction and impact assessment sectors, but also the work of our partners, like the organization we are featuring today, SoPact, which is a social enterprise providing measurement solutions via software tools. Our guest presenter today is Unmesh Sheth, founder of SoPact. I invite you to submit your questions during this webinar session by typing them into the dialog box on your screen and then pressing send. Our presenter will then verbally answer as many questions as possible during the last part of today's one-hour session. It is very helpful if you are as specific as possible with any questions you submit. Again, I remind you to please email your questions at any point during the presentation through the dialog box. I will be collecting all questions that are submitted and then posing them to Unmesh Sheth, our featured presenter, at the end of his presentation today. To further introduce our guest presenter, I'll now turn it over to Heather Esper, WDI's Program Manager for Impact Assessment.
Great, thank you, Sandy. Great, thank you, Sandy. Thank you also to today's attendees for joining the webinar. Today's webinar, as Sandy mentioned, is part of our ongoing Power of Poverty Assessment webinar series. Through this series, we strive to create a learning community to identify and share opportunities and limitations of different measurement approaches. In addition to featuring measurement experiences of our partners in the series, we also share experiences from our own work from time to time. To give some background on our work, we design and implement a range of measurement solutions. With all these solutions, we try to push the boundaries in assessing economic, social, and environmental performance and outcomes of organizations and businesses operating in emerging economies. In addition to the measurement work we do, we're also focused on creating measurement solutions that meet the needs of organizations and create more value for their stakeholders. Or in all the measurement work, I should say, that we do, we're focused on creating solutions that meet the needs of organizations and create more value for their stakeholders. We're also committed to sharing best practices from the work we do, either through this series as well as other mechanisms such as conferences, blogs, especially through Next Billion, and papers. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Now I'd like to introduce Unmesh. We're very happy to have him here today. He's the founder of the social enterprise SoPact and co-founder of a nonprofit, ACTA. Unmesh has over 25 years of experience in the technology, management, and the social sectors, and through these experiences he came to the realization that social change was difficult, in part due to the lack of efficient systems, data measurement, and data sharing. So in 2013, he created SoPact, a platform for measuring and managing financial and social impact in 2013. We're excited to have him share more details on SoPact today. And we're also excited to have a WDI Global Impact graduate student intern who will work with SoPact this summer. The intern will be based in India and work closely with both SoPact and a company that has used SoPact. They'll work to refine the framework and also work with SoPact to share their experience more broadly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Unmesh.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you WDI for giving an opportunity to present a very unique and different viewpoint on how we all together can be in a process to focus on the assessment, poverty assessment part of it. SoPact is a vision that has grown from my 25 years of experience in technology, management, social service, and the human-centered design thinking. Started while building digitization systems for membership and demographics for the Self-Employed Women Association, in short, SEVA, an organization serving 1.8 million underprivileged women. Since then, SoPact has surpassed major milestones and has grown into robust impact measurement platform to measure what matters among the social sector organizations and funders. Despite the significant progress made towards UN's Millennium Goal for 2015, 2015, challenges remain, most notably developing a stable foundation for sustainable progress. Funders and social sector organizations play a key role in MDG. There are significant challenges of digitization and measurement both. Many non-government organizations, NGOs, or in US we call NPO, non-profit organizations, are operationally ineffective because they are frequently small and resourcefully constrained. Social sector organizations and funders vary in levels of inefficiency while collecting data, measuring impact, and empowering intended constituency. Most of these organizations use Excel and custom databases fulfilling basic needs, but limited in analytical scope. Data often cannot be shared across multiple organizations for maximum benefit in the open source format. Let's look at the next slide, where really our focus is today going to be on the presenting a platform that we have built. It is really a comprehensive platform to measure the social impact measurement. SoPact platform encompasses the leading industry standards such as IRIS, and yet is easily customizable. Our innovative approach and vision is to build a better social sector with that increasing need for more effective financial and social measurement reporting and storytelling. Before we look into the social impact measurement landscape, let's look at the popular rating systems in financial industry in US called Morningstar. Morningstar measures standardized metrics such as profit, revenue, and important benchmarking between different business enterprises. The nearest equivalent to social impact in social sector are mixed markets for microfinance and IRIS for small and growing business, or SBA as small business administrations organization, the small businesses. IRIS is the catalog of generally accepted performance metrics that leading impact investors use to measure the social, environmental, and financial performance of the investment. Investment funds report data for individual investment through B analytics, which can be reported in IRIS format, which can later be used to communicate and benchmark various social impact. Frequently, this self-reported data can be falsely reported because of the wrong intention and lack of proper interpretation. If organization uses standardization data, frequently context is lost, making the data irrelevant. To improve social impact, we must value a context, and this is the most important point that I want to get out of today's presentation. Because the context holistically helps understand and report the social impact. In this slide, we will go over commonly used social impact approaches today and point out SoPact's focus area and approach to improve the outcome. When social impact evaluators communicate findings to funders, there is a fundamental lack of common approach. Let's start by understanding 4 common approaches in this domain from bottom up. At bottommost, number 1, which is the most frequently used impact measurement approach, called randomized control trial, and several other leading methods. At bottom, they are primarily used by impact researchers who lead evidence-based research approaches. Though these methods can be justified in many long-term studies, often they are useful in providing and proving and disproving if the treatment is effective for a selected program. Unfortunately, these approach can be costly, often error-prone, and time-consuming. More importantly, they do not provide immediate feedback. The next level, however, is typically named as a program outcome improvement, is more useful when beneficiary group requires agile feedback and regular interventions such as disability employment, HIV/AIDS outcome, patient outcome, etc. Unlike survey-based approach that we saw in number 1, these systems manage beneficiary life cycle and manage program outcome. The one above is really a funder impact measurement, which is really is typically led by many key players of funding agencies like CSRs, foundations, social impact bonds, and social ventures. Often this area is looked as a traditional M&E from funder perspective. The challenge with the current approach is that there is a limited agreement between the funder and investee or grantee on measurement language, and limited sharing reduces impact envisioned by funders. Later in this action, I will demonstrate SoPact's collaborative approach allows to create a shared environment, improving a long-lasting effect on the interventions. The last is on top, which is really of the pyramid, standard-based benchmarking, such examples being IRIS and mixed markets. Social impact measurement practices can be seen as a pyramid where B Analytics and Jane works with IRIS 3.0 at top. Though they are leading impact measurement services for social impact funds, their approach has major transparency issues. For example, IRIS do not include any metrics about immunization rate, and one of which rates or even about the health. One of many IRIS partner metrics, however, is being developed with the Center for Health Market Interventions, does include health metrics, one of which is, as you see on top, is a health intervention completion rate. But imagine being a manager of an impressive immunization program and having to enter 33% of in investor form that includes the metric. In reality, it's really what the program is all about, is the increasing 33% increase in immunization at $28 for a fully immunized child, which is a totally different program goal altogether. So this is really where the context really gets lost when they're reported to the standardized format. We firmly believe that the better results will be achieved in the middle of the pyramid, as you see between number 2 and 3, especially by building agile systems and preserving the context of the measurement between the funders and social sector organizations. So before we go into the next part, let's look into what is a typical or future measurement, evaluation, and learning system should look like. And before even we do that, let's look at the first thing, which is really what are the current approaches out there today? Many M&E systems designed by prevailing vendors such as Social Solutions, ClientTrack, and Broadband are inefficient when it comes down to collecting and monitoring and analyzing data, as their infrastructure and orientation methods are not designed for the developing country demographics and time-consuming and expensive to implement. This lack of technological adaptation impedes the rate of progress and development of social sector. Advancements in cloud-based architecture and mobile technology, however, presents unique opportunities. SoPact's flexible, modular, and scalable solution fully utilizes open source and cloud computing platforms. It stands out for providing a low-cost solution that is easily customizable to provide an exceptional user experience. So now let's look into the base of the technology that we have built. After several failed attempts with open source and proprietary platforms, SoPact finally delivered a flexible, modular, and scalable solution, solving the challenges of the creating low-cost and easily customizable user experience with the Salesforce's cloud-based innovation. Though there are many drivers unique to the Salesforce, we chose Salesforce due to three reasons. First, Salesforce is an industry-leading and robust cloud mobile-based platform. Second, Salesforce Foundation provides non-profit customers to use the platform at no cost for the first 10 licenses. And third, Salesforce's Force.com platform is powerful application development and configuration environment makes it easy to adapt in changing needs. In addition, SoPact leverages Salesforce's collaborative features such as Chatter and integrates community-based products to improve the results. Force.com-based platform allows to configure program-related details such as details much more rapidly with a true metrics as a priority. SoPact leverages Salesforce platform to build mobile-first applications for Android and iPhone. In addition, Salesforce has an excellent support for offline data caching. This is perhaps a very important feature for field workers working in remote area where internet or wireless connection can often be unreliable. Okay, so before we get into the next section, which is really where we want to present first a case study, and even before we look into the case study itself, let's look at the larger issue at the heart here. And this is what I frequently call the measurement is not a last mile issue as we call it in the West. It's actually the first mile issue. If you really spend time in a developing country where many people are in a remote area. For remaining slides, I will discuss specific classification of poor, that is disabled community. Later, I will explain case study that provides complete life cycle of how impact measurement can be used to address challenges facing disability employment domain. Disabled individuals are frequently at the bottommost of social pyramid, mostly because many of them come from extreme poverty. Worst off, many developing countries' government have weak policies towards disability rights, infrastructure and support system is in shambles, and society's ignorance on the subject creates a big empathy gap towards poor and disabled overall needs. In other words, the issue we address represents the most extreme example of poverty. 70 million out of 1.2 billion in India are disabled, and small fraction of them are in a dignified employment. UK's Parliamentary Undersecretary for International Development recently explained that the hundreds of millions of people living in disabilities in developing countries will remain invisible unless the world dramatically improves its data collection for the disability. We need an innovative system that disrupts traditional program data measurement and build collaboration and shared practices. We have reached a point where no amount of philanthropic resources can match today's imbalances. Instead, we need an innovative and systematic approaches. M&E tools should go way beyond impact measurement and focus on impact learning approach. SoPact has been working with partners such as Enable India, who are thought leaders in disability employment, and research fellow from William Davidson Institute to define framework and disseminate knowledge. Our process is described in this slide, but more details can be shared offline. SoPact started at a very large resourcefully constrained organization in India, a developing country with where 80% of 500 million laborers are still in unorganized sector. Our goal was to place beneficiaries in job and build working capacities for communities. SoPact demonstrated its first success when it helped enable India, an organization started by honorary Ashoka and Skoll fellows, increase the placements of disabled beneficiaries into jobs in underprivileged communities. This session is our attempt to share how SoPact is building such an impact learning process in one important domain. Our hope is that best practices described here catches on with others, and we'll iterate through this process and improvise it in many other challenging domains. Before we go into the final section, I would like to present some of the key elements by showing some hands-on demo of some of the work that we have done at the Enable India. This will give you a real clear picture of what would be an ideal system be like for the future M&E systems. And I will very clearly point out some of the key design and user experience things, elements that are really important in order to be successful for the future M&E systems. Integrating M&E tools to improve human resources and management can improve program outcome. The biggest challenge facing integration, however, is that most data collection processes are poorly designed, creating poor reporting and analytics. SoPact has provides rich out-of-box data objects designed from standards and best practices in employment and training domain. This base dramatically improves data accuracy, benchmarking, and reporting. SoPact object model incorporates iris but also allows flexible integration of individual requirements. So let me switch it to the live system, which is really based on a Salesforce. When you see, however, the system, we have, as you can see, first impression, and people who have seen the Salesforce, this is a dramatically improved user experience compared to the standard user experience that you get from the Salesforce. And throughout the remaining presentation, I'll keep pointing out some of the major improvement that we have done throughout the system. But before we get into it, there's one big area of improvement that we had to work on for several years, and this is based on some of the very hard working experience with a very large organization like SEVA and Enable India, where countries like India, where these organizations are spread into hundreds of thousands of locations. And frequently, many of the users of the systems really come from the lower bottom education point of view. So many of them have only finished second grade or fifth grade, who are doing the regular data entry. Unfortunately, since they have a different language barrier and different cultural barrier, chances of introducing the data inaccuracy is extremely high. Let me just give you an example. For example, when we work with the organization like SEVA, they have 4,000 location presence. You could be typing village, which could be V-I-L-L-A-G-E or V-I-L-L-E-G-E or V-I-L-A-G-E or and so on. And you got the point essentially. The main important thing here is that this is the biggest challenge that what we have found working with many of the developing country organizations is that many of the systems have a data text collection based system. Unfortunately, that introduces many level of inaccuracies. To avoid that issue, we have used some of the standards based practices. So for example, disability is borrowed from Social Security Administration because that was the best definition that was available. We have about 14,000 regions starting from world level all the way till district, taluka, village level. we have a job profiles which is really designed based on the 10 years of the best practices of the organization like Enable India, which is used to create a profile which can save awful lot of time when they try to place the different type of disability people with the different type of skill sets into the right kind of occupations altogether. And so on. We have objects for skills, qualification, occupations, industries, and several other objects that you are not seeing here from IRIS-based standards as well. Now, how are they useful? And you will see that in the next few sections. But before I get into that, the main background here in the system is really, this is about the beneficiary and program management function. So the main thing about the program outcome improvement is providing a life cycle management for the beneficiary management. And that's a key thing, because if a disabled person is going to be with you for more than a year, you want to really know at which stage they have come in and what are the different phases they are in, and at each phase what kind of intervention that are needed altogether. And without that information, it's very difficult to make the right kind of outcome improvement. The key thing that I would like to quickly point out about the user experience is that unlike traditional Salesforce pages, everything is on one single page. You can see the row-based action where you can do the enrollment for that candidate. You can do edit and delete it. You can do SMS or email that candidate. You can do 360 views of that candidate. You will see in a little minute, and also make them inactive, which is a very important part as well. You have very unique type of filtering systems, and the search, which is very specific to the object itself that you are seeing, which is really the candidate rather than system-wide search. You have the ways you can edit all the rows at once, and this is a frequently very important feature, you like it or not. Many of these organizations have many data entries to be made, and doing the rapid data entry is extremely important. If you try to do this thing with the Salesforce pages, you have to literally open up the 50 different pages to change 50 records, whereas here you can do changes in one single shot altogether. So there are many features that is out of scope. We can't really spend and go into details in this time, but I wanted to kind of give you a high-level view of that. Another thing which is extremely important, which is really doing the 360 views of a candidate's life cycle. So for example, here you see the registration info, contact info, obviously, demographics, where you can ask some of the other questions from IDs as well, some of the standards or any of the standards that you may be using. You can do the collect any kind of documentations for the users, like license, identity proof, resume, disability certificate, employment certificate, case study, etc. You can do complete profiling of the disability so that you can find the right dignified employment for them. You can do more general profiling for such as work experience, occupations, skills, qualification histories, and so on. You can, when they come in, when they're done the profiling, you can do the recommended trainings that are important for their overall outcome, and also manage the enrollment process. You can place them into 2 or 3 or 4 job opportunities that's available to them, and plus we have a 360 views of case management available and the task associated with it. So this is really gives a huge power to the staff who are really can provide a very effective interventions. And the most important thing is that as you change any of the data here, whether it's education, experiences, or multiple of them, in a real time you get the visualizers, and this is the most powerful system, because essentially you are giving a power to the in front of to the organization users, so that many of the time you don't even know what criteria to ask when you design the system. Here you are designed for every flexible systems, every flexible questions and metrics and you can see the results in real time. So for example, here you can see how many people are inactive, and that's an extremely important question to ask, because are this person not coming to the organization anymore because they cannot afford the bus fare, or do they have they passed away? Many other reasons. Are they in a training phase? Are they employed? Are they employable? They're registered profile. That's one of the most important life cycle questions to know. Who are they referred by? Where and what is the current situations? You could ask, get the information like type of severities, like mild severity, moderate or profound, learning disabled, autistic. What kind of the annual income that you are seeing versus the type of different disabilities, disability types. As you saw earlier, we have borrowed some of the disability types from Social Security, so you can get more granular classification as well. The demographics is an extremely important thing to understand, especially for the funders as well, because you want to know who are you. Not necessarily as growing as much as it's growing for the male and female ratio altogether.
And you're wireless, so, right? Yeah. I've lost it again.
Yeah. Hi. Hello. Yeah. So so those are the key things that we can collect and visualize and give the power to the end users altogether. The next system really is focusing on the program management aspect of it, and the program management truly can be all kind of programs. It can be vocational training, it can be employment, HIV/AIDS prevention, immunization, palliative care for the patients, family planning, or child survival. So essentially you can kind of design the systems to meet the ultimate program objective. But here you can see the common functions of the program management to do the social networking aspect of it, the managing tasks within the organization's opportunities. You see 360 views of calendaring, case management, which is a very, very useful to meet the objectives of the organizations, and the accounts and contacts. I'm sorry I'm moving fast enough because of the time constraint, but the key point that really I want to get out is it is extremely important to get the system, which is a visual and gives the information to the staff in a much more easy to use manner. Again, this is one of the programs that Enable India has been using, and one of the key metrics for them has been unique placed, unique total trained, total placed. So, and these are the reports that they do regularly to the funders. Again, there are a series of the objects that's available for managing their trainings, classes, enrollments, and most importantly, as you can see, you can see those 4 core metrics by job category, by job disability type, by job profile, and you can also see year by year progress for each and every metrics altogether. So amazing amount of data can be collected, but if your system is not designed to report this thing and visualize in proper fashion, the no amount of data that you have collected is very meaningful altogether, and that's the key point of our system. And finally, there's other benefits as well, that we have out-of-box cloud storage management systems and all those things. So these are the very important functions of the SoPact. now, so I have gone through these slides already. Before we get into the this was really about the program outcome improvement. I would like to end this session with a few important additional points as well. Currently, impact investors and grant makers and investor programs have to deal with hundreds of measurement tools and frameworks. Most investors find it difficult to navigate through them and really find it confusing and with ambiguity. What we offer in our approach is to provide a collaborative process that focuses on improving consistency within their own internal ecosystems, grantor and grantee, or investor and investee. SoPact uses SoPact, Salesforce's community-based design that promotes collaboration of metrics and shared content within a network and outside the network. Our out-of-box simple wizard allows configuration of the common networks such as CSR and nonprofits, social enterprises and their remote offices. So for example, water franchises is the good example. Data aggregators are what we call as impact data aggregators, or the social ventures and social enterprises. So that allows them to collect the data and create a very dynamic communities. Imagine Khan Academy of Social Impact Measurement content community. Finally, SoPact views all the partners, investee and or grantees for their core tracking indicators, survey and reports and core objects. These tracking indicators have built-in reminders based on predefined frequency. And the part that I was unable to show, but which is very important part of this system, which is really aggregating this data and presenting to the end users through the donor community is also extremely important. And we have designed one-page technology to show your core breadth of impact informations, the program metrics, social impact metrics, everything in a single page, and people can dynamically pick and choose the information that they are interested in their area of interest. That improves a bigger affiliation between the donor community as well. So let me end this thing by concluding that SoPact delivers a platform based on human-centered design. The social sector needs an innovative system that improves traditional program data management and builds collaboration via shared practices. We have reached a point where no amount of philanthropic resources can solve today's social imbalances. Instead, we need a way beyond impact measurement and focus on impact learning approach. We are looking to align with any organizations interested in developing innovative approach into their M&E. By partnering with such an organization, we have the best potential to build a stronger solution together. Thank you so much, and I would like to give the control back to Heather or Sandy for the Q&A sessions.
Thank you, Unmesh. That was an excellent presentation and a great deal of information to digest. We have received several questions that have come in throughout your presentation, so I'd like to start posing a few of those now. One question is this. There is, as you've mentioned in your presentation, a large number of tools and methodologies available to do impact assessment measurement. And it's often difficult for some people to understand when to use one tool and when to use another. Do you have any advice for someone that's trying their best to evaluate all the tools out there?
When I was looking at the landscape of the different tools and frameworks, you can easily get dizzy about the approach. And I think most important thing to keep in mind is the rather than getting so much hung up on tools and framework, the biggest challenge that I have seen really is what I call as language of measurement. And this is exactly where a lot of things breaks down. And specifically, if you look at from funder community perspective and from the social organization perspective, it is extremely critical that you understand, define the metrics, not only define the metrics, but what does it really mean on both sides. Because if you look at them from funding perspective, funders' perspective, they have a larger viewpoint about the type of the impact they're trying to do, whereas the social sector organization has a much better understanding of their beneficiaries. However, getting that context clear between two of them is much more critical than trying to find the most ideal tools out there. I mean, we could go and spend hours on this topic of what is the right tools and frameworks, and I think we may not be able to, I may not be able to do the best justice by really giving the best guidance on in this particular session.
Thank you, Unmesh. We have another question. If the measurement is so context specific, does that mean it's not relevant to compare with indicators of other contexts? It
is relevant to compare other contexts, but like I think let's go back to the example that we had earlier about the immunization. It's one thing to say that how many people, for example, in earlier slide we saw that got immunized. However, and that's useful as long as the context is known between the two main players altogether, or between the two entities who are understand that. However, when it comes down to doing benchmarking with the multiple number of players altogether, frequently that context could be lost, especially for example, if you look at our domain of placements, you have to specify how many people you placed, but that context also comes with who did you place with it? Did you place the person with the visually impaired person, hearing impaired person, or the mentally challenged person, and or low-skilled person? And that matters a whole lot, because if I am an organization who's focusing on simply vocational training and do not really focus on disability, it's much easier to create a much bigger number altogether. And for the disability organization, it may be not easy to kind of present the fair picture altogether. So it's important that you add that context of the disability or tap the disability when you present that. Same thing goes into the earlier example we gave on an immunization, where it's not just about immunization percentages you did, but at what cost did you do that, and in what, how many people really were benefited from that. So it's important to contextualize when you start comparing with many different partners.
Great, thanks, Unmesh. This is Heather. I had a question, so I'm going to jump in. Sandy has a number of other questions, so I'll only ask one. But we're beginning to see more platforms emerge that aim to provide a somewhat similar service to SoPact, in that they provide data aggregation, visualization, reporting, and decision support, while allowing organizations to take data from a variety of sources, including digital streams. How do you see SoPact differing from some of these platforms, such as, I think there's Snyder, there's Missouri platform, and then there's an iLearning system, just to name a few?
Yeah, I mean, I think each platform has its sort of a strength and the background that they come from typically. iLearning example that you gave me, really I believe it comes more from education background, and they are very useful in defining their cognitive rules and really helping large number of organizations in present their data and help them improve altogether. So in one sense, what I have tend to see time and time again that though there are many similar looking examples, but when you start to open the hood, underneath they do have a different things to offer. SoPact differs specifically in partly because of its own background, which is really came from developing country situation where the amount of the sheer data collection need is significantly high. The location where you are representing and collecting the data is also significantly hard. Frequently, the data you're collecting in many places do not have a very reliable internet or the wireless connection. So how do you collect the data that is reliably entered into the system is also an extremely important pieces. So these are the differentiating factors typically, and many of the, in fact, there are more very advanced M&E type of tools. Many of them have come most from the Western style of thinking, where all these issues that I'm talking about, they don't even have to deal with it to some extent. So in one sense, the benefit of a SoPact is that it's designed for the end users who are really coming from bottom up, really designed for the very rich user experience, reduced a lot of data accuracy issues, and which is really the biggest pain point that we faced working with the developing country organizations.
Thank you, Unmesh. I have another question. How do you define the scope of your impact at the time of measurement and don't tend to underestimate or overestimate?
So the scope of impact is frequently defined by as a collaborative work between the how organizations sees their long-term impact of the work they do. For example, in case of Enable India, they have been starting from various different the domain of visual impairment, but then they keep on going in many different areas, and working with the funders also, they have a sort of a different expectations. So a lot of the time impact and is really defined as a core negotiated entities or core negotiated matrices between the two different entities. It's really not a magic formula. It's really kind of based on some of the long-term impact that organizations would like to see based on their own background and the level of impact that they want to create. At the same time, based on the funders essentially who really wants to collectively see how they want to shift the specific areas of impact in larger context. So for example, how funders would be seeing the disability, it could be quite different than, partly because they may be interested in shifting the employment not just for the disabled person but also addressing larger issues of sensitization within the community, or they may be interested in influencing the policies of some of the disability. And organization may have different impact objectives altogether. So it's really a very collective objectives altogether that they have to work. Challenge, however, is that a typical organization, and they have to be working with many different agencies, many funding agencies, many central government agencies. So it's really it's really a very depend on the organizations about their thought process and thought leadership and how much larger impact that they want to see in space altogether. So I don't think we can have one single answer to that. It really all depends on essentially ability for organization to drive the change.
Thank you, Unmesh. Another question. Can your system be used by traditional companies? I'm reading that as for-profit companies. Can your system be used by regular companies to build sustainability reports?
It can be with the modifications. Yes, it can be done. I think we have to understand what sustainability in a specific context of for other for-profit environment would be. But I think without knowing the clear details of what sustainability is defined as, it's difficult for me to answer. One of the challenge, obviously, with any systems altogether is that it really all comes down to defining overall overall configuration that we may have to change. And one of the challenges that we have seen with the systems like SoPact and similar ones is really how long does it take to build the ultimate system. The processes are frequently very different from organization to organizations. The metadata requirements are frequently very different from organization to organizations. What SoPact provides actually is, as we described in last 7 section, which is really a core infrastructure, which is really based on Salesforce's CRM based thing. So that is something available out of box. And on top of that, there are out-of-box program management functions, which are also reusable for sustainability. You can also build a beneficiary part of it, which is also if there is an objective for that particular organization. So these are the common objects that can be reused in a context of sustainability. Now, again, like I said, all those things serve as the base, but there's always some amount of changes that you eventually end up doing. And it always boils down to, are we talking about 10% change, or are we talking about 30% of change, or 50% of change? And so when we sit down with a specific company, the idea is to kind of define those markers and find out whether the SoPact-like system will be faster development path, or it's better to even sometimes start from scratch in many cases. So it really depends on the specific ultimate outcome of the sustainability reporting part of it.
Thank you, Unmesh. Next question. Given the large number of tools embedded within the SoPact platform and also the need to reliably collect information, is there any sort of roadmap to guide NGOs toward entering the most important data accurately?
One of the area where we have spent awful lot of care is wherever possible, we have designed many standard objects. For example, occupation is an example I gave earlier, or skills. All those things have a very detailed dictionary, or the object dictionary that's available, which can be completely out of box reused in every context, every NGOs. And that's itself saves a significant amount of time, and it can really be very useful to any organizations. So modules like beneficiary data collection can be used almost nearly out of box. However, there's always going to be some 5% or 10% of shift data mapping that we may have to do, which may be unique to the organizations. But by and large, this is fairly extensive, to the extent that we have also embedded some of the IRIS-based, which is really, IRIS is as I explained earlier in the beginning of the presentation, is there's a standard which is used by most impact funders. And if you choose to use IRIS reporting, then you collect that data. If you don't report in iris, then essentially you just don't map the data and you don't even show that data mapping on the beneficiary data collection altogether. So, and that mapping is relatively very easy to do in a very short amount of time period altogether. So I think in a short answer is you can pretty much use the system nearly out of box, especially when it comes down to the data collection for the beneficiary life cycle is concerned. As far as program is concerned, we have defined some of the programs which are very specific for the employment outcome improvement. And if you want to use it for the, let's say, for the patient outcome improvement, then you have to kind of redefine some of those functions. But they are designed based on the same design principles, so changing those things it's not that difficult for us.
Thank you, Unmesh. I have time for one more question, so this will be the last question. Once you respond to this, I'll do a quick wrap up. So the last question is, can a general assessment approach be applicable for every region geographically to get the right poverty assessment or get a correct poverty assessment or accurate?
Yeah, so this is a pretty loaded question. General assessment, by that means that you mean how you collect general data for poverty assessment. And the best example that I can think about is the census in US, and there are equivalent of census in every country out there. And yes, it can be useful, but it just provides very limited information in the sense of the baselining, some of the information about the poverty. It doesn't really tell you a whole lot about how to improve some of those situations of the poverty-related programs altogether. So as long as you design with the need, which is very clear, which is really about the collecting the basic information about the poverty program for census-like systems, then yeah, then it makes sense. But by and large, really doing poverty assessment it's not just about just doing assessment, but eventually it's about the improvement. And improvement is really in a goal, then you literally have to design the state-based system so that essentially you can improve the outcome of the beneficiary over the poverty-related programs over the period of time. So I hope I answered that question, which is really as long as you are really collecting the base information, I think you can use that approach, but otherwise that approach is not that useful in a general improvement situation.
Thank you very much, Unmesh. This will conclude our webinar presentation for today. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope you found today's topic exciting as well as helpful as you consider your own organization's efforts in measuring poverty alleviation. Again, a great big thank you to Unmesh Sheth from SoPact for being our guest presenter today. This concludes today's session. Again, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.